Yo, and welcome to the first Wonderlands build here on the channel. And in those opening clips, there is nothing funky going on. There's no bugs or exploits going on in any of those clips. It's all completely legit. You will be able to one-tap essentially every single boss once you learn how to stack your damage properly and exactly what is going on with the interactions with this build. Also, everything you're going to see out of this is not completely optimized yet. I'm still missing an armor piece that I've been trying to farm for, but I still have not been able to get my hands on it. I will make sure to point out what the optimal armor set is once we get to that point. But overall, this build is going to allow you to just spam spells nonstop, one-tapping pretty much everything in the game, which is just so disgusting. It feels so good to have a pure spell build at our disposal. And then if you are interested in trying out my build and you want the save file, it will be in our Discord, so make sure you join up on the Discord and check out that save file. But let's go ahead and jump into this build and see why it is able to one-shot essentially everything in the entire game. Let's go ahead and start off by looking at our skill trees, because I think it will make the most sense when we get to the other pieces. And then we're going to start with the Spellshot side, as it will make more sense when we talk about the Graveborn skills. So the main reason we're able to do so much damage is because of the class feat spell weaving. So this, for every time we cast a spell or reload, we're going to gain a stack of spell weaving, and each stack is going to give us 10% increased spell damage. And we can increase this even further with the skill high thread count. This combined with the class bond that's going to give you an extra point in there, you can get 2 out of 1, which is an extra 6 stacks of spell weaving. So at max, we're going to get 11 stacks, and that's 110% extra spell damage when you're at 11 stacks of spell weaving. We're going to want our spell damage to be as high as possible, because the higher we get that base spell damage, the higher damage another skill in the Graveborn skill tree is going to do, and that's what's going to be causing all of the different one-shots. But then to complement it and also move down the tree, we're going to get spell snipers, so our spells have a chance to crit. This is also going to increase the damage of the Graveborn skill that is doing all of the one-shots, because when this crits, the base damage of the Graveborn skill is going to go up as well. And then we're just going to get some spell cooldown rate on top of that. And then our action skill is going to be ambidextrous. This is going to allow us to run 2 spells and increase the chances of getting those one-shots to proc. But now where the real crazy stuff starts to happen is in the Graveborn skill tree. So the reason why we want to use those Furiors with the Hydras is because of the skill Faithful Thralls. Every single one of those that we throw out, we're going to get increased global damage dealt. And this is going to double dip with the skill Blast Gasp. Blast Gasp is the skill that is going to make you able to one-shot essentially anything in the game, because everything is going to double dip, at least with what we're spec'd into. So that global damage is going to increase the damage of our spells, and then Blast Gasp, when it procs, takes the damage of the spell that procced it and then uses that as its base damage. So while the card says the damage is going to be 50% of the damage dealt, this is actually going to be about 4 to 5 times the spell damage dealt once we get all of our anointments and different skills procced. This skill is also why it's not guaranteed to be a one-shot every single time. As you guys can see, it is a 20% chance of proccing, but with the right spells, we can increase that and make it a lot more likely to get the one-shot every single time. Then the other key skills that are going to help us out is just increase spell cooldown right here, and that's a kill skill. And this is all these kill skills are going to combine with our capstone. So whenever we cast a spell, it's going to trigger all of our kill skills. And that is just super, super helpful. And then all of our survivability is going to come with Sanguine Sacrament, because as you guys have noticed here in the Spellshot skill tree, we have Glass Cannon, but we do not have Mage Armor. This is because of the shield that we're going to be using. The shield that we're using is going to give us 100% increased damage, which once again is going to double dip with Blast Gasp. Enemies in this game just deal so much damage, so the best way of surviving is just making sure you have a health gate active at all times. So you just need to get to that 50% health threshold to make sure that you do not die in one hit. The health gate is going to give you plenty of time to regen when you guys spam your skills. And then the final 2 really important skills will be Ascension. This is going to give us maximum health, but then most importantly, spell damage whenever we get a kill. And obviously with our capstone, every time we cast a spell, this is going to stack up. You can stack this 10 times, and it also lasts for 30 seconds, which is an incredibly long time. So we can get 60% increased spell damage, which once again is going to go into the base damage of Blast Gasp, increasing its damage further. And the final skill being Lord of Edges. So when we get our shield to break, most of the time we are going to get health gated, but we're going to get a ton of increased damage dealt, which once again is going to double dip into blast gasp. If you guys are seeing a trend here, everything is double dipping into blast gasp, and that's how we get those insane damage numbers. So those are all of our main skills, but let me just quickly go over all of our accessory skills. So punishment, we're going to be casting spells a lot so we can get more hellish blasts coming out of our demi-lich. But if you guys want a little bit more survivability at the cost of some damage, you can use Dread Covenant, because your demi-lich will probably end up dying and you guys are going to lose out on damage because it will count for Faithful Thralls. So it's kind of up to you which one you put this point in. I personally pick punishment. And then we're going to get Dark Hydra. This is going to increase our chances of spawning a Dark Hydra companion whenever we cast a spell, because it's a kill skill. And that, once again, is going to go into Faithful Thralls. And that, in turn, is going to increase our damage of our spells and blast gas. And then finally, we're going to do Harvest, just so our companions deal bonus dark magic damage. And then for the other skills in the Spellshot skill tree that I haven't talked about, we're going to do Magic Bullets. And then I'm not sure why there's actually a point here in just warming up. We don't need that. Just go ahead and throw it into the Reload skill up here, because that's going to increase the amount of TDRs that you can end up throwing, because the reloads points will actually end up affecting how quick you can throw those. Now, some of you may have noticed that I'm not specced into the skill Stain of the Soul. And you may be thinking, why would I not do that? It's just bonus dark magic damage on top of our spells. So right now, unfortunately, spells are actually bugged with how they work with critical hits. So our big damage numbers are going to be coming from spells that critically hit, and then those are obviously going into our blast gas. But when you guys have bonus elements active, these are actually going to steal from the spell crits. The spell damage themselves will not actually crit. Only the bonus element will crit, so you actually end up losing out on a ton of damage, especially on a skill like this, where at 5 out of 5, you'd only get 20% bonus dark magic damage. So please do not spec this skill right now. Spells are bugged with their crits and bonus elements. And then onto our hero points. As you guys can see, my Spellshot power with my class mod and amulet is up to 59%, and that's where we're going to get the increased spell damage per stack on spell weaving. Right there, it's 59.1%. So we're essentially getting 16% per stack of spell weaving, which is fantastic. And then your hero points that you're going to want to spend are into strength and dexterity, just so you can increase the chances of you critting and also increase the damage of your crits. I did pick Village Idiot for this character so I can have my crit damage be higher. Now, the reason I'm running 0% Graveborn power is because, to my knowledge, there is no class mod that exists that rolls with primary Spellshot power and secondary Graveborn power that can get high thread count, because our class mod is going to need high thread count, as that's going to increase our spell damage much further. But it is kind of a shame, because the Graveborn power would increase our blast gasp damage. But now that you guys have seen the skill trees and know why all of these skills are interacting the way that they do, we can now take a look at our gear and which ones actually complement this very well. So the main ones are the Furiors that turn into Hydras when you throw them. Preferably, you're going to want them on SMGs or pistols, as they have the lowest reload time, so you can throw them much quicker. But the main aspect of our gear that is going to synergize with everything is our enchantments. So the preferred layout that I really like is on Spellcast increased lightning damage, on Spellcast increased elemental damage. Now, when you guys are going for boss one-shots, you guys are going to want the gain 200% spell critical chance, just so it's more consistent. So when the blast gas does proc, it's more likely to be on a spell crit, increasing its damage. But if you guys are just running around normally, I would pick the enchantment while health is full, gain 25% gun damage and 25% critical hit damage, because with our skill layouts, we're not really going to be regenning our wards, so it's going to be a one-time break, which is purely just for our boss fights. This can be active very often when you guys are mobbing, but otherwise on the spells, you're going to want on Spellcast increased ability damage, because that's going to increase our blast gasp damage. And then finally on Spellcast, increased damage dealt by 15% for 10 seconds. Now, all of these anoints, except for the increased ability damage, this is purely for blast gasp. All the rest of these are going to double dip. So the increased damage is going to increase the damage of our spell, and then again, it's going to increase the blast gas damage, double dipping. Same thing with the two elementals, the elemental damage and the lightning damage. Both of these are going to double dip as well. Now, for the actual items themselves, the guns, like I said, just run anything that's the Hydras, and then I do just run a Nightshade just in case, just something super consistent that I can use in case I need it. But in our shield, we are going to be using the Cursed Wit, because while our ward is depleted, gain damage reduction and 100% increased damage dealt to nearby enemies. This gets closer to the 100% the closer you are to an enemy. So even if you're not right up against them, you can still do some increased damage. But once again, this is a double dipping mechanic right here. It's going to increase their spell damage and then increase the blast gas damage on top of that. And then our rings, you guys are going to be wanting to run spell damage rings, because this is going to increase the damage of obviously all of our spells and then increase our blast gas damage. This is just repeating this process over and over. I cannot hammer that home enough, because that is our main source of damage. And then on our amulet, I like lightning damage just because it's another elemental that's going to double dip, and then Spellshot power. And then on our special effect for it, I do just like the Fate Maker's critical hits, increase companion crit chance. And then also our companion crits increase our Fate Maker's critical hit damage. So this is going to help our damage whenever these Hydras are out shooting things, and they will be critting fairly often. So this is going to be almost always active. Now for the spells themselves, there's a bunch of different options that you can run. So my preferred one is the Cloudburst Arc Torrent. So at the bottom, it'll say channel cast and calls down a lightning bolt. These, you pretty much always have a charge. They do a ton of damage, and they can hit multiple enemies that are close to each other. So it's good for pretty much everything. Now, if you guys are going for one-shots on bosses, I personally prefer the Concentrated Magic Barrage. Just try to look for ones with as high damage as humanly possible, and also that are multi-pellet. I believe these can technically roll ×3 if you get really lucky, but I know for sure ×2. And once again, this is going to increase our chances of proccing Blast Gasp, and this is going to be off of a very high damage spell. And on these, you are going to be looking for a channel cast version. Now, when I'm mobbing, usually on one of the other spells, I will try to turn it into a simple cast, just because sometimes you really just need that instant burst of damage. You don't want to be channeling something. So an Ice Spike is a great option, but there's a ton of other just simple cast spells. You can do an Arc Torrent simple cast as well. That is down here. It's completely up to you. Just find a simple cast option that you personally enjoy. And then finally, in terms of the gear, let's go ahead and take a look at our armor set. So what you guys are gonna be looking for is a Spellshot Spore Warden mix. Don't worry about the Spore Warden. We're just here for the Spellshot power. And then this class mod can roll high thread count. That is the Twister skill right here in the middle. This is incredibly important. And then in a perfect world, you guys are going to want all the rest of the points into the reload skill for Spellshot, because obviously we're not going to gain anything out of the Spore Warden skill. And then on our passives, perfect world, spell damage, ability damage, and all damage dealt. Any combination of those works great. And then right now on mine, I have total critical hit chance is reduced by 50%, but the crit damage is increased by 50%. This isn't bad, but the best thing that I'm going to be personally looking for is a type of armor that is very similar to this, but it's going to be melee and ability damage are increased by 50% of your spell damage. It's essentially this skill right here, but just reworded in a different order. And this is going to allow your Blast Gas to do absurd amounts more damage, because our spell damage is up to a couple 100%, which would essentially over double the damage of our Blast Gas if it's going to be working how I think it will. So the highest Blast Gas number I've hit so far is around 6 million. And if I get that increased damage on it from this armor set, I can easily crack 10 mil, and that's why I'm really looking for that armor set. So some tips with this build, if you guys are ever getting really low health, so I let the crabs down there hit me, what you guys can do is, if say you're using the Arc Torrents, just go ahead and barely charge them up, and look at the bottom, and I'm already at full health. This is how you guys are going to get insane survivability. Whenever you hit health gate, go ahead and waste some spells. Just go ahead and run around. Your spells come back so fast. It really does not matter if you're wasting them. You're much better off staying alive and just waiting that extra 2 seconds for a charge to come back. Then you can go back in killing the enemies. So now that we've gone through the entire build and you guys know exactly how all of this stuff interacts, let's go ahead and see it in practice. So how I've been one-shotting these enemies is just stacking up some spell weaving. So to start that, all you guys are going to do is just shoot a weapon and reload it over and over until you get to about 6 or 7 stacks of spell weaving, and that should be good enough to start going towards the boss. Now I am just going to shoot spells right now to get a couple stacks of Ascension. You can put on your Arc Torrents and spam them for a little bit just to get up to 10 if you need to, but not always needed. Otherwise, we're just gonna be throwing our Fury Ores to get to the Faithful Thrall stacked up. And we're gonna get really close and charge our spells. Once we're broken, we can go ahead and release our shots and insta-kill the boss. It is that simple. You guys can learn on the different bosses because they obviously do have differing health on which ones you need to stack up for. Some things like Zomboss, you can just passively do it like you guys saw at the very start of the video and still one-shot them and get super quick and easy farms. Now, like I've said, this isn't always going to be a guaranteed one-shot because Blast Gasp does have a 20% chance of proccing, but with the magic barrages, you guys can get them multi-pellet, which each one will have the chance of spawning Blast Gasp. So as you guys get more and more pellets on these, you're going to get increased chances of proccing Blast Gasps over here. But yeah, that's this entire build in a nutshell. Overall, the potential damage on this setup is just disgusting. So I really do hope you guys enjoy. Hopefully you enjoy the bossing with it. And once again, you guys can have great mobbing success in Chaos Chambers as well once you play around with the different spells and find ones to your liking. Then once again, if you guys wanted to try out this save file, it will be in our Discord, so make sure you join up on that if you're interested in checking it out. But hopefully I'll see you guys over on Twitch. We stream basically every single day. Otherwise, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya.